So we put together this, what we call the book Delight, because this year we are celebrating the centennial of Chico Xavier, right? And we got our brochure, the SSB brochure, and we put a tribute to Chico Xavier here. So if you know anyone who doesn't know about Chico Xavier, here we have a short bio description about him. So it serves the purpose. You can give it to people so they also get to know more about it, not only about the SSB, but about Chico Xavier himself. Not because of the person. We're not here idolizing the person. Our goal is to share the legacy he left. Because in our opinion, what many great humanitarians have done, if we take a little bit of Mother Teresa, a little bit of Gandhi, a little bit about Nelson Mandela, and put together, we get Chico Xavier. And we think Chico Xavier is really the role model for us to live and lead a better life. If we want to be happier. Of course, we are talking about someone who followed Jesus' steps. And we know, as Emmanuel once told him when he was completing 60 years of mediumship, people were thinking, oh, Chico Xavier, is great. And Emmanuel said, Chico, your 60 years of uninterrupted mediumship is equivalent to 6 minutes of Jesus' work. So we're not talking about Chico Xavier as Jesus, but someone who really showed us what is possible. And the legacy he left is not only in the books, but also in the books. So tonight, we are going to recap, for those who have read the books, some passages that talk about rebirth, and other passages that people may not have read before or may not have paid attention. But before we go there, these are the books we are proposing to highlight tonight. Not all of them, because not everything that they contain, but highlights about rebirth, because this is the month of rebirth. Who is Chico Xavier? These are some of the things we could tell for people who don't know about him. He was born at the first decade, entering the second decade of the 20th century, April 2nd, 1910. He lived 92 years. 75 of them were spent in true dedication to his commitment with Spiritism. He was born in a Catholic family, but then he got to know Spiritism because one of his sisters got to be disturbed mentally, and no traditional medicine at the time could help until she was brought to a Spiritist center and not only received the treatment, but later she committed to develop her mediumship. She got healed, and the whole family became a Spiritist, Chico Xavier including. He was 17 years old when he got to know of the teachings, and a lady turned to him and said, you should start psychographing in the meetings, meaning some people call automatic writing, we call it psychography. And since then, he just, developed his commitment. And he's still in the spirit realm helping so many people. He had a challenging life, probably more challenging than any of ours here altogether. He lost his mom when he was 4, and he was from a very poor family. He didn't have the opportunity of studying more than the fourth grade. That's what he could do at the time. He had to stop to work and help the family and the many brothers and sisters who needed help. And after he became a Spiritist, the commitment was for 30 books. And because he fulfilled it, the spiritual guides started giving more assignments. And at the end of his life, we know, it turned out to be 412 books. For those who don't know about his legacy, it doesn't stop at the books. He kept his life simple. He had opportunities to live in a bigger house, in cities that were more glamorous than the city he chose to live in. He had opportunities to live among people who were very wealthy. He decided to keep it all simple. It was his choice. In a very simple home. He was not a person that would accumulate anything. And we're talking about this because nowadays we live in a society that pushes us to buy more and more and more, and we don't know what to do with the old stuff. He decided not to go that route. So today, if we go to Brazil and visit his museum, we're going to see precisely the way he kept it. One bed, one table, nightstand table, and one dining table, and one little desk, everything that he needed. He didn't need more than that. And what did he do with the proceeds of all his books that turned out to be bestsellers in Brazil and still are? He gave all the proceeds to nonprofit organizations. All. He didn't keep one for him. He could have said, like his father once suggested, we need money. Can't you just take one of these books for us because we need money? Said, Dad, you don't get it. These books are not mine. They are of the spirits. This is true mediumship. It's not a mediumship that stopped only in words. And of course, the charitable work he did, healings, the seeing mediumship, the mediumship without charging, and the reaching out to so many people, he also got to be one of the Nobel Prize nominees. This is just so we picture the meetings. Mediumship that was done in a teamwork fashion, different from what we hear nowadays. Oh, I'm a medium, I go by myself, and I'm the soul. It's not like a soul work. It's a teamwork effort, because Spiritism teaches us this way. It's safer, it's more powerful, and that's what he did. Always, till the end of his life, that's how he worked his mediumship. And he also, even though he was older and sick, he never stopped reaching out to people. And nobody told him, look, Chico, you have to be here no matter what. He volunteered to be there. And even though he was sick. In regard to the books, we're going to start studying about the book Nosso Lar. And the teachings that now Leo, Sally, and I are going to share with you are teachings that also he learned from the spirits. He brought this information. He didn't believe in some of the things until Emmanuel brought him to the spirit colony in Nosso Lar, so he would see with his own spiritual eyes the reality that they were bringing through him. So we're talking about Chico Xavier not being born like this. He became. Because sometimes we look at him, see, it was easy for him. No. If we read and talk to the people who were very close to him, he became Chico Xavier, the one we know. He wasn't just a normal person like we are. He was afraid at the beginning of so many things. He was afraid of things just like we may be afraid of. Like if there is turbulence in a plane, he would be afraid of. Like lawsuits, he had a time in which he had to face it. He struggled. And Emmanuel said, you need to get stronger in your faith. And he grew. So, talking about it, we're going to begin with the teachings that one of the spirits brought through Chico Xavier. Of the thousands of spirits who brought the teachings, André Luiz is one of them. This is a drawing, a mediumistic drawing, so we can picture André Luiz. Of course, it's not his real name. He says it very clearly in the book. This is the name that was given fictitiously just to protect the identity. Because, as he said, he didn't want to hurt the loved ones that were still living at the time. and it doesn't really matter. But we know he was a physician in Brazil. In his last reincarnation, he was married, had 3 children, and we hear talking about some of the 16 books that he wrote through Chico Xavier. And we begin with Nosso Lar. And Sally is going to lead us into some highlights of this book that can help us in our very lives. Sally, please.
Thank you, Vanessa. André Luiz started this series of 16 books presenting to us the spiritual world. Nosso Lar is a spiritual city located close to the spiritual area of Rio de Janeiro. And what is Nosso Lar? The translation from Portuguese means our home, and it is a transitory spiritual colony in Brazil. The book has 50 chapters, and the main characters are André Luiz, Minister Clarence, Lísia, Lauren's sisters, Henry de Luna, his doctor, once he got to Nosso Lar, Minister Veneranda, and Tobias, who taught him a lot. What do you know about Nosso Lar? Nosso Lar was founded by a group of distinguished Portuguese pioneers who, after passing on, settled in the spirit's plains over Brazil in the 16th century. So it's not a very new colony. It has been there for a while, as we know. And what do you know about André Luiz? André Luiz starts the book telling us his personal experience in the spiritual world. And as the good spirits answer to Kardec in this question 224 in the Spirit's book, they say, the soul becomes a free transient spirit and aspires to a new destiny. It is in a state of hopefulness and waiting. And as we have learned with Spiritism, depending on we live our lives, when we pass away and go back to the spiritual world, we can have a happy experience, so-so experience, or a very hard experience. And André Luiz starts the book sharing with us his painful experience in the spiritual world. And of course, after a few years of suffering, one day he remembered the power of a prayer. Not because he was aware of this power, but in his despair, he finally prayed. And once he prayed, he was rescued. He saw good spirits surrounding him, and he was rescued. Later on in the book, if you read, you know it, or if you haven't, we really invite you to read because it is a wonderful book. Later on in the book, he will learn that during all the years he was in the spiritual world, he was always surrounded by good spirits. But he was only able to see them and be rescued when he opened himself to the experience of moving on. So then he starts the book with this powerful experience. And then he moves on. He's rescued and he finds himself in a hospital at Nosso Lar. And for his surprise, the doctor, Henry de Luna, gives him a diagnosis that André Luiz was got by surprise and that he didn't like at all, because he was told that he was suicidal. Let's see what the book tells us. This is Dr. Henry de Luna telling André Luiz. Let's look at the intestinal zone, he said. The occlusion was due to cancerous elements, which in turn arose from some indiscretions of yours, in which you contracted syphilis. The disease might not have assumed such grave characteristics had your mental attitudes been firmly based on the principles of moderation and brotherly love. Instead, you chose a dark, exasperating way of life, which attracted destructive vibrations from those around you. You never imagined that anger attracts negative forces, did you? Your lack of self-control and your thoughtlessness in dealing with others, whom you so often unthinkingly offended, frequently left you under the influence of sickly and inferior beings. These circumstances greatly aggravated your physical state. So André Luiz thought that he had just passed away because of his cancer and he was a victim. Then, as soon as he gets to Nosso Lar and gets a little better, he learns that he committed suicide. And because this is the month of rebirth, one of the main highlights we get from Nosso Lar is this importance of how we are taking care of this temple that is the material body, and how hard the good spirits have to work in order to give us an opportunity to reincarnate. And the spirits went on talking about what Joana de Angelis brings to us in several books and what we have studied later on our emotional education, on the attitudes we need to have towards life so we can live better, emotionally better, in a healthier way. So once we go back to the spiritual world, we are not called suicides, and we don't need to hear from our good spirits that we completely lost our incarnation. And this is one of the experience that André Luiz shared with us. Again, Dr. Henry de Luna asks him, "My dear friend, do you really seek your spiritual cure? Then learn not to speak so much of yourself and your sufferings. Self-pity is a symptom of mental illness, which is time-consuming and difficult to cure. It is imperative that you create new trains of thought and control your words. The only way to spiritual balance is to open your heart to the divine light. If you consider the necessary effort to be an oppressive burden, or see the struggle for redemption as an imposition, it is a sure sign of spiritual blindness. The more you dwell on your painful experiences, the more you bind yourself to them." So, again, André Luiz is sharing this knowledge with us because he was allowed by the good spirits to enlighten our present incarnations. So again, it's not easy to reincarnate. How many spirits are waiting the line to receive this opportunity nowadays? We did receive. But in order to be successful with our present incarnations, one, as André Luiz just shared with us in the previous chapter, we need to take care of our material bodies, our temples. And because we have learned already that our material body health depends on our psychological, spiritual, mental health, this is one wonderful tip for us to avoid self-pity in order to increase the chances of having a more successful reincarnation. And talking about reincarnation, very briefly, would you like to mention that Nosso Lar is a spiritual colony that is not one of the more advanced. It is located very closely to Earth. And not, and it's very interesting to note that even though Nosso is not very highly evolved, it has 6 ministries, and they have spiritual, enlightened spirits responsible just to plan the reincarnations of the ones that are in our solar. And it's also important to highlight that sometimes, and you see it when you read the book, the spirits, that is an example, the nurse called Narcissa, had to wait for 10 years working in Oslar in order to obtain a more controlled emotional, in order to learn more about emotional education, to then be able to reincarnate. So talking them about cases of incarnation, this case of Narcissa that had to wait for 10 years in order to be able to reincarnate, because then she would feel more mature to have a successful incarnation. And also there is this very interesting case, that is the case of Laura. Laura was one of the spirits who received André Luiz at her house. And Laura had spent a lot of years in Ossular working as well. So let's see what they say about her. Courses can be taken before incarnating. So Laura says, I have finished my conditioning at the preparation service and at the means of elucidation. And then André Luiz mentions, we must remember that Laura is returned to the earth endowed with extraordinary spiritual credit. This very morning, the governor's secretary sent a note to the Minister of Assistance recommending that the reincarnation experts should take the utmost care in dealing with the genetic background selected to shape our sister's new body. So it is very interesting to note that the more we work, more efforts we make to do good, more merit, of course, we have. And this is the same in the spiritual world. Because Laura have worked so hard for so many years, helping others, she was able to receive not special treatment, but the treatment that was coherent with her maturity. So then they would be able to take more attention to her genetic background and to plan better which body she would have in order that Laura would have more chance to have a successful reincarnation. We are not saying that there are privileges in the spiritual world. No, there aren't, because God is just. We are just mentioning that, according to André Luiz's words, we need to do our part. In order to deserve credit, we need to have merit. And it means we need to work hard for that. And about talking about working hard, it is very interesting, this concept of hour bonus in commodities. Very briefly, it says that an hour bonus is a convention created to account for each hour of service performed on behalf of the community. So then André Luiz explains how things work in Ossular. Private property is relative here, just as it is on Earth. Our acquisitions are made on the basis of working hours. The hour bonus is, so to speak, our money. It's earned by our own efforts and devotion, and may be exchanged for any commodity. The buildings in general represent common patrimony under government control. However, each spirit family may obtain a dwelling house, never more than one, on the presentation of 30,000 hour bonus, which may be obtained during a certain period of work. So in order to have a house at Nosla, the spirits need to work for that for a long time. So then they would have the good experience as Laura had to be able to go to Nosso Lar and find there a house that her husband, who passed away before than her, was able to obtain. So then Laura went to Nosso Lar, she met her husband again, he had the opportunity to have that house. And then he went back to Earth. And now Laura was preparing herself to go back to Earth. And pretty much, just one more highlight about Nosso Lar that we think it is interesting. That is, André Luiz wrote this book. He had this experience in 1939 in Nosso Lar. And it was when this World Second War was to start. And then André Luiz tells us, dark bands of ignorant entities, after having left a blood trail of war in Asia, are laying siege to the European nations, urging them on to new crimes. Fellow workers and brothers, let us invoke the protection of the power fraternities of light, which preside over the destinies of America. So what happened was, André Luiz was very surprised to know that the other colonies surrounding them were asking for help, asking that all citizens in Nosso Lar would join them in prayers, in maintaining the optimal level of thoughts, so then they could help what was going to happen on Earth by that time. We would like to talk more about the book, but it's not the purpose of our book delight today. It's just to give us some ideas, the main purpose of the book, and to bring us some highlights and make a parallel of the idea of reincarnation. So the main purpose of the book Nosso Lar, as we understood, was to bring to us this knowledge of how the spiritual cities are organized and exist in the spiritual world, that we are a very bad copy of the spiritual world. And also to show us by the first time, it was the first Spiritist book that brought to us the knowledge of how the good spirits plan incarnations and how they pay attention to all of us while we are on earth, accompanying our progress, our success in our incarnations, that Leo is gonna develop more in the book The Messengers, when he's gonna bring to us some case from spirits who reincarnated from Nosso Lar. And also, one of the main highlights of this book is when André Luiz woke up for the real life and realized that the time to be served was past, and that he was ready to learn how to serve and then be really happy, with a happiness that nobody could steal from him. And it was when he became a server. And it was when he started helping others. And then you see his spiritual progress toward his 16 books. And you see how he was able to progress. Also, he decided, I want to serve and be truly happy. So we'd like now to pass the word to Leo, so then you can see several cases of incarnations of spirits that were Nosso Lar citizens. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Sally, for the kind words, elevated words. And we give continuation to the second book of the series of 16, as Vanessa discussed, with the book The Messengers. And I would like to make a parallel to our daily lives before we go on into the book. Taking the case of Laura that Celia brought to us, and analyzing a little bit before we go on into this message. Many times before we go to bed, sometimes we go to bed thinking about the next day, trying to prepare ourselves, making a mental list, if you will, what we have to accomplish, right? We'll have to get this done, get up in the morning, get dressed, obviously go to work, get this and this and that done, then come back from work, go to the grocery store, take care of my kids, do whatever we have to do, and we plan. We make a plan. As we saw, Laura also had her plan, 10 years, throughout 10 years to reincarnate. And we do the same thing. We go to sleep. Excuse me. We get up in the morning and we go on with our lives. We then try to accomplish whatever we thought we could accomplish, whatever we want to accomplish. But it gets to the end of the day, then we come back with perhaps a feeling of accomplishment or perhaps a feeling of not so good of a day. There are three things that could happen, right? Number one is for us to feel very accomplished and say, well, I got done whatever I was supposed to get it done. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed because there was so much, but at least we tried. That is the second option. Perhaps, well, you know what? I tried. It was really hard. I got some things done. Perhaps I will carry it on next day to finalize whatever I had to accomplish. Or the third is the time when we come back and say, I didn't get anything done. I procrastinated. People came to me and remind me about it, but I really didn't want to get anything done, right? And we start getting that feeling, that guilt feeling that, okay, my God, what am I supposed to do now? And we are anxious to wait for the next day with that guilt feeling inside of us. And this is a feeling that perhaps this book actually brings to us. It's this feeling of, I was prepared, I prepared myself, at least I tried to prepare myself. I got up in the morning, I didn't get anything done. And here I am now with this feeling of, gosh, what am I supposed to do? All the years were wasted, all the time that was wasted, and perhaps those who are very effective as well on their challenges throughout the day, and they get the work done. So this is a book that truly helps us understand this, helps us analyze through several examples, even though we're only going to bring a couple, or one perhaps. And also, the book, it's about these experiences of the messengers that are prepared from Nosso Lar, from this center, the messenger center, to help others. As Celia said, for those who are truly now thinking about others, not only themselves, not centralizing their ideas on themselves, but concerned to devote their lives to spiritual growth, not only themselves, but others. It is the need to stress to the reader that there is a blessed opportunity of work in the course of a current life. Sometimes we think that, it's just getting up, go to work, or sometimes we think it's just, taking care of my family, or being selfish enough to say, oh, life is all about me, and that's it. And we can actually make a difference in other lives, whether here in the flesh or perhaps in the spiritual realm as well. Not only that, this book is also a partial report that covers 1 week. It's amazing. There's so much that this book explains to us. It's only 1 week in the spiritual realm. It's only 1 week in a center that completely devotes itself to a higher cause, the cause of helping others. So it's very amazing that, it's just the cases that we see that brings to us and say, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing when I get up in the morning? Or perhaps what am I doing when I go to bed? Am I thinking just about myself or about what difference I can make in the next day? It highlights a need as well for good behavior in people who dedicate themselves to helping others on their spiritual path. This is a very important case because when we decide to make a difference, to be a different being, we'll find many challenges. We'll find people who come to us and say, what are you doing this for? Is there really a need for you to go and change yourself? Let's go back to the life that we had before. So there are, it's a really hard transition. It's a completely hard transition when you say, I want to make a difference. Not only that, there will be the challenges as well that we'll see later on that really push us towards the barriers, and sometimes we retract. Sometimes we fail because of those barriers. But whenever we make a decision to do good, we have to be strong. We have to truly make a decision and continue in that path. Not only that, we would like also to discuss what are the services of the Messenger Center. We already mentioned, Sally already brought to us, and I just mentioned as well, which is to prepare workers to be the messengers so they can provide assistance to those who are overcome by suffering in their lower zone and on the earth. Once more, it's just to teach, to prepare others to serve, to assist, to live a better life, while in the flesh or not. Just a highlight that we would like to discuss when we talk about lower zones, it starts with us here on the crust, as it mentions on earth. It starts with us on earth's crust, and also in certain spiritual realms, if you will, where there are only suffering spirits, where they are only in that mono idea that they keep remembering and remember. And as Sally mentioned to us, that's exactly what puts them in that condition of being a lower zone, because they're always the only thing that crosses their mind is that problem that they had before, perhaps in the last lifetime that they created, or perhaps a life that they didn't take very useful, and they keep suffering. And obviously to be the connectors of mediums that gets to be prepared, which we'll see with the spiritual realm as well. And that comes to the idea of who is trained in the messenger center. And this is a passage on chapter 3, page 23, when they said, I'm not only referring to spirit messengers, but also mediums who will return to earth in physical bodies. These are the mediators, if you will. The name already says a medium, right? That will give the ability for us to connect and help the spiritual realm, because we can help. Perhaps we are not enlightened beings yet, but there is always something that we can share with others. There is always something that we can give a little life enlightenment to others that will bring them up, will raise them from that mono idea, perhaps from that suffering that they're going through. Mediums and structure are trained and prepared by the hundreds every day, just to highlight the work that they're doing and how we are being helped. We're not alone, and when we talk about here on our prayers during the SSB, when we talk about home as well, about our mentors, our guiders, it's there. It's not something that somebody just created. We are being helped. Otherwise, what kind of God are we believing in when we think that we just reincarnate and okay, this is it? We prepare all these years to be alone while reincarnated? Not necessarily. So they're here to help us. They're here to instruct us. I would like to share with you this amazing passage of the book, chapter 8, which is Acelino's downfall. It's called Acelino's downfall. This is an individual that perhaps we have mentioned here before, but it's always good to remember. Always good to go through again so we can reanalyze, because many times we go through the same trouble or many other troubles. This was a gentleman who was actually prepared, as Celia said, and also Lar, to reincarnate on earth and to work helping others through his mediumship. He was giving support from mentors before and during his incarnation. So before, he also was prepared many, many years, and throughout his reincarnation as well, he was helped many, many times. So the help never said, okay, now you're going to reincarnate and that's it. You're left alone. You have to do whatever you have to do. He had a perfect physical health and mental stability. Many times we question. It just passes by that I have 2 arms, that I have 2 legs, that I can hear, that I can talk, right? We just say, okay, it's a normal thing. But for those who truly don't have it, they wish they could have it, or they're able to overcome those obstacles in a way that we're just like, okay, my God, and I'm complaining about my life, right? He was married. He actually was on the plan for him to get married, and he did get married. He had a partner who also was prepared to help him throughout the time that he would be here on earth reincarnated on the work of mediumship. He entered the mediumistic work. He had a group support as well of reincarnated friends that helped him develop the work, and he did so. But there was one problem in his life that pushed him towards the barriers, which was the lack of monetary means. And that was the problem that pushed him over the edge to change the whole plan. He then started to help, or perhaps let's change the word help, give consultations to others who came to him only to question about their physical matters, about money, about their lives. How will my, this new job that I'm supposed to get work for me? How will this house, should I buy this house? Should I buy this car? That was the type of individuals that he was seeing it. He was charging these individuals. He started charging for the work that he was doing. And obviously, being a medium, we could be a medium for good spirits, and we could be a medium for suffering individuals. And the spirits who came to aid those questions were not so enlightened ones, because they were responding to those questions. And the life continued. Throughout that time, or let's say before that started happening, the group questioned, the wife questioned, and the mentors also came to alert him about it. But he felt that, no, this is the right thing to do, and he actually continued in the work. And the group also, underwent the same condition. Then death came by, right? And he continued in the same position. Nothing changed. He started then seeing those individuals that he was being a medium for, and these individuals kept coming and questioned what happens now? What are they going to go through? Did this person lost this job? Did that person lost the fortune that they had? And he starts suffering from that. He starts suffering from that, from whatever he caused on earth. And he was very sad. He was very sad because he then felt that, okay, all these years, all this preparation that I had, and I just threw everything away. And that guilt feeling sunk in. And he was being, let's say, prepared to reincarnate and to understand what he had created. Because it's not a matter of, okay, no, just forget about it. God is just, is love, and we'll give you another chance. No, we have to understand what we are going through, what we have caused, and we have to make amendments, perhaps. Right? And it reminds us in this same passage, before he explains his case to Andrea Luis, that I'll get to that in a second. He explains a friend comes to him and say, just wait, give yourself some time, and we'll come out of this, as we will see later on. But just to highlight, besides this case that we just mentioned, the cause of failure that we see many times, and the couple one that we would like to mention to you is that there are mediums and mediumship, minister and theology. As there are workers and tools, the tool can be excellent, but if the worker lacks dedication, the tool will rust into failure. So we can see mediumship the same way. The mediumship is that tool that we have to help others, to exalt a higher and a better life for all of us. But if we don't use in the proper way, we can hurt ourselves and certainly hurt others as well. And as it's explained here, it's the gift may be powerful, but if the person cannot see beyond selfish interest, that person will fail the mission, and will also take many others with them as well. Because it's a very important things that we have. There are certain things that we have to analyze in our lives before we make the decision. And if hopefully we make the right decision, we continue with it and we do the right thing. Finally, an enormous percentage will balk at the first firewall encounter and will retreat when the opportunities become threatening. We just mentioned one, lack of monetary funds. Sometimes say, oh, my life is horrible. I can't do this. I don't have the monetary fund, the means to do so. Or my family needs my more time than or school or work. There are many, many excuses that we can present that will perhaps stop us from continuing the work that we promised to ourselves, not to God only, but ourselves in the past. But to finalize it, as I just quickly mentioned, this is the message. This is the words of his friend, of Celino's friend, telling him not to cry, and say, you haven't been forsaken. Besides, you can count on your mother's devotion, who was also helping him in the spiritual plane. I'm in a worse situation, but even then I'm not without hope. We are obviously spiritually impoverished. However, we must await confidently for a new loan of opportunity from the divine treasure. God is not poor. This we can compare, perhaps, at the end of the day, when we go to bed again, thinking, I missed that point, I missed that opportunity, but tomorrow is a new day. And tomorrow I must do the right thing. So there is always a new tomorrow, but we have to be very diligently And talking about being diligently, we finalize this passage with Emmanuel's advice, going back to the preface, which is very important in this book, when he says, and most of all, remember that edifying messages from the beyond are not meant to be mere emotional interaction. They are intended to appeal to your status as child of God, so that you take inventory of your actions and surrender really to the responsibility of living by our Lord. So we hope that this has helped you, and we'll pass the word to Vanessa to continue on perhaps the third book. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. You can keep it just in case they have questions. All right. So, of course, after these two books of the 16, the third one is Missionaries of Light. But we decided to give a whole workshop to the Missionaries of Light, which is going to be in 2 weeks, and jump into the fourth one, which is named Workers of the Life Eternal. And this book, mostly, it continues the understanding of what happens in the interaction. These books are about the beyond, but most importantly, they are about the consequences of what we do here. Is there anyone here who is assured that you're never going to die? In the flesh, I mean. Is there anyone who thinks you're never going to die in the flesh? So everybody here is going to die, right? We know. We know that the physical body, sooner than later, or sooner or later, will perish. And we spirits will have to move on, right? So these books, they are telling us how to use everything we have been given, including physical body, what we're doing here, and how it's going to impact later on. That's why we're taking this book to talk about rebirth, because it's a rebirth of every day. In our mediumistic meeting on Monday, we had a good spirit saying, we need to reinvent ourselves every day. And he says, as the sun comes up in the morning, we shall propose ourselves to learn and serve. As it goes down, we shall recap and propose ourselves to do better the next day. But not only financially speaking, because that really we have experienced. It can change overnight. But mostly about the treasure we're going to carry to the afterlife, to the life eternal, as it says here. So what is this book all about? Because none of these books repeat a single teaching. They are all new, which is amazing. And generally speaking, this book gives to us, it was given in 1946, and it is the first time that André Luiz joins a service expedition as a worker. In the first 3 books, he is a student, he says. In this book, he finally becomes a worker, which is fascinating because many people come and say, I want to be a practitioner, I want to be a worker. But like André Luiz, it takes learning, observation for all of us to really become a worker. And that being said, this book has 20 chapters. 20 chapters that are, every single paragraph begins with a new teaching. So these are some of the images we got from a project. If you type, it's in Portuguese, but it doesn't matter because images are not in any language, universal. But this is named Projeto Imagem, Image Project, by this Spiritist scholar in Brazil, Américo Sucena. It's amazing because he draw the main pictures of all Chico Xavier's books, or mostly, not all, but all the ones that really need pictures, like André Luiz, Emmanuel's, etc. And this is the one he dedicated to the beginning of the book, Workers of the Life Eternal, to represent André Luiz and the other spirits. The goal of the book is to talk about what we do in life and how it's going to impact on our death. We know each one of us will go back to the real life sometime. What are we doing here that is going to impact and have a reaction in that transition? That's what they're talking about. Beautiful cases that can truly change our perspective in this life. And as they talk about, this information brings to us of the regions in the afterlife. Kardec used this name erraticity for what Celia brought at the beginning when it talks about the life in between the physical realm and the spiritual one in the other levels that surround the earth in all directions, and the invitation to the good. This is the main purpose of the book. And this is one of the pictures he drew to represent what they call the transitory house, or for the other ones in Portuguese, because it kept its name in Portuguese, Casa Transitória de Fabiano. Fabiano de Cristo, a spirit that was a Catholic in a previous life and became a renowned benefactor in Rio de Janeiro and in the spirit realm. He put together this, what they call a mobile refugee, that goes to several different locations to go help. So they put together teams who go assist people who are in the transition of life, meaning they are dying the physical body and get back to the spirit realm. This is good, especially for this time being, because our attentions are all in Haiti for the tragedy that happened there. And sometimes people wonder, how come? What happened? That's not fair. What is God doing? Etc. But this book shows us that they are not alone. We can help, but we can help being assured that there are loving teams like this. They show the picture of the people who are dying, the spirit doctors, nurses, therapists taking care, and also sometimes protecting from the obsessing entities, as you can see drawn here in these darker images, that can be of great help, just the fact that they don't have direct access to us. And they say, death, Emmanuel's preface says, death does not extinguish friendly cooperation, mutual aid, comforting intercession, or evolutionary service. This is the beauty. And we recommend, go watch the movie that just came out, The Lovely Bones. Because that movie shows, if you have watched, great, but tell others. Because the way they put it together, the director is the same of the one that put together The Lord of the Rings. And the way he pictured it is really the way many things happen. And there we see that friendly cooperation is there, mutual aid is there, and we still grow in the afterlife. And in this movie we see a girl that was born at 13 years of age, 14th, and she grows in the spiritual realm. She learns how to get rid of her grudge, okay? So, other things that they talk in the book, like in this case, to show how the spirit doctors help, for example, when we are receiving passes in centers like ours and others, that we're never alone, so it's good to picture. But not only that, mostly they say there is a time for everything, and we should cherish and appreciate time. There is a time to be born, André Luiz says, to die, and a time to be born. We know 9 months, the baby comes. For the time we need to go back, there is also time. It shows coma from a different perspective, as a true blessing. Not saying we want to be in coma, but when that happens, no, we don't want to be in coma. But if that happens, we may rest assured something important is happening to that spirit and the people who are involved with that spirit. So it's not all that bad. There is a purpose as well. So he talks about cases in which the spirits induce coma, so they have time to operate on so many things and give time for that spirit to rethink so many things before the cut really happens. Because let us remember, we spirits are like balloons, very free. If you let the balloon flow, it's going to go everywhere where the winds of the mind go. When we are incarnated, the balloon through the cord of the perispirit, let's say this way, is grounded. It cannot go much farther away. But when it's cut, we are led to our thoughts, so we better change our thoughts. We better have better thoughts, because when we don't have this physical body, we're going to spend as many years as our thoughts are making us travel through. So if we really want to spend time in the afterlife doing good things and feeling good things, we better study here. That's what the book talks about. One of the main highlights, before we go to a main case of the book, is about the power of words. This is chapter 2, something we're learning. It's a very extensive chapter, beautiful, and talks about the power of words. And it says, words create living images. Words create living images. Vibratory images. These images live and proliferate. And they say more. They say, depending on how much life we give to these words, how much we repeat them, we may create big mess in our lives. Or beautiful things. So, second chapter, they already come across like saying, this is how we need to change ourselves to live a better life. And in the spirit realm, they say something interesting. They have an instrument named vibratory meter. And they put in this colony where they are, in the nosolar, especially in this other part. And they say, for the ones who are coming here, we have the vibratory meter at the door. If someone is coming and they already are emitting words that are not very well, they don't come in. And they say, here we have this exercise of only saying words that will be joyful. Of course, they talk about problems. Here's André Luiz learning about people's experiences, but that has an instructive purpose. But to talk about just for the sake of, and what are we helping when we're saying stuff? And we're using vital energy. This is what they're saying. Our words are as if God has given us treasure, energy. And we're using God's treasure in forms of words. If we use this to multiply the treasure of God, which is only good words, then we'll be blessed. If we're using this treasure just to entertain our animal instincts, our old man inside, then we will create problems for ourselves and others. So they are reminding us, it's a beautiful chapter. There are so many details. It's really unfair to summarize in these little bullets, in these small bullets, but it brings to mind something that is very striking. One of the most striking cases is about this man, Demas. Demas' life and death. This man, for several chapters, André Luiz says that Demas, in this life, he had an adorable wife, children, friends. He was a spiritist medium. He did great work, wonderful charitable works. One day, he got sick and he was being prepared to go back to the spirit realm. So, why is he highlighting this case? Well, because there are features here we need to pay attention. You see the spirit doctors here, they are there. This is Dima's mom. The spirits, they called a special group to go and help assist the transition of Demas. Do you think it was easy or hard? Why? Why was it probably easy, Yasko?
Because he was prepared and he had the knowledge of the spiritual world after death, and he did good. So his connection with the incarnate and discarnate spirit was only with the positive one.
Okay.
Good one. So it should be easy because of this.
Good point, Yasko. But there is a but, which is interesting. Thank you, Yasko, for that insight. So here we're going to learn details of the exchange of energy. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. And why is André Luiz bringing this case to us? Before this case, he brings another one of a guy who easily got same condition, but he easily got the discarnation. Because one thing is death, the other one is discarnation. Death is the death of the physical body. Discarnation means when we spirits, with the perispirit, we're truly disconnected from the perishing body. Now, this guy, although he had many friends, and he had merit and credit, this is how they talk about. This is how the discarnation began, just so we picture it. André Luiz is there, and another friend named Geronimo, who was more experienced than André Luiz. So Geronimo instructed André Luiz to put his hands on the patient's forehead. And then, and this is how much we want to give you the details, he says. First, he entirely desensitized the vagus nerve. So here we need a lesson of anatomy, just so we picture. The vagus nerve that really is all about our autonomic system, to facilitate the disengagement in the entrails. Next, using lengthwise passes, just like the ones we do like this, he insulated the entire sympathetic nervous system before neutralizing the inhibiting fibers in the brain. So this is just how much detail. There's more. Just to give us just a little glimpse of what they talk about. Very detailed, very much detailed. Not only that, but very precise, because the ones who are neuroscientists know that what he's talking about really makes sense in regarding to vitalization or devitalization of a body, which is amazing, because Chico Xavier didn't have that type of instruction. He couldn't make it up, especially because back then neuroscience wasn't all that developed. Then he talks about three main regions of the body. They get to be taken care when they need to free the soul. One, the vegetative center, which is mostly connected to the abdomen. The other one, the emotional center, mostly connected to the thorax. And then the mental center that is mostly connected and located in the brain. Just so we see that these guys, they receive instruction and training in the afterlife to go there and help in the transition. It's not simply, oh, let's go there, scissors, cut, boom, that's it. It's not like that. But I know you're curious. What did he do? Or did he not do? This is the part where we get to know. The thing that he made a mistake, because they did all the steps, but at the end, when the mom came, the instructions of the higher spirits was, Mom, you're going to stay here overnight. We're going to induce him into a coma so we can give time for him to think about some things. Next morning, we will come back to cut the last segment that is connected to the body, which is the silver cord, which is connected to the brain. But then, what? Oh, here, thank you, Daniel. Here, silver cord. Here, you see? So he's in coma. And this is how he is in like a baby status here. He says that he's sleeping, He doesn't know, but deep inside, and the mom is here, and she's going to take care of him. They're protecting the environment so suffering spirits don't come in. In the meantime, he needs to think about something, and the family as well. Why? Because his problem was that he conferred too much affection on his direct family. Now he obviously suffers from their emotional attacks. Period. This is what happens nowadays on earth. Everything is about our family. Everybody else doesn't matter. Or matters just a little. But not priority. Everything's about family. This is what happens when we die. It's going to be very difficult. Because they say, what the families, they say the magnetism of the family saying, oh my God, and I'm going to suffer. And he didn't instruct the family to love the universal family. And he was all about his family. Although he was helping others, his family was always number one. He never put everybody on the same level. André Louis' own words. Because of that, his transition wasn't as easy as it could be. So it's not about being a spiritist, devoting yourself to others, but really detaching from the things here, including the blood ties. Detaching doesn't mean, André Louis says, forget about the family, but balance the love and the affection with everybody else. Like Bezerra de Menezes, he had a daughter who was sick at home. At a time when internet, cell phone didn't happen. When phones, TVs, nothing. If you left, you wouldn't know if your loved one was still there, living or dead, until you came back. But what is the difference between the life of his daughter and the life of someone else's daughter? None. So he said, I did my best. Now you stay there, and I'll go take care of someone else. This is what André Louis is calling our attention. Otherwise, the day we die, we'll go through what Demas did. The people who stay around will be like, and he didn't want to die either. Can you believe it? He didn't want to die. Because deep inside, he was still worried about the family members. He was spiritist. So to be a spirit doesn't save us until we actually practice it. So the care and support of these spirit organizations in the afterlife, in regard to our transition, they come and help us, but there is one condition for them to make specialized care. What is the condition? It depends on the life here. All the phenomena surrounding death involve the charitable and care and support of organizations that offer aid indiscriminately. However, a specialized mission cannot be granted to those who have not distinguished themselves persevering in the endeavors for the good. And they say, distinguish. It doesn't matter for us just to do good, but to make a good deal of good, to distinguish ourselves into the greater good. Taking care, really, André Louis shows us very clearly, if we just go by our ordinary lives like everybody else, especially us who know about these teachings, we'll probably suffer more than they do. Because our conscience is going to call us up. In other people's case, they may not even realize it. But once we do, we may. So this book really brings to us the awareness that to have a good death, we need really to live a decent life. And this is how we'd like to wrap it up by proposing that we recall Chico Xavier's legacy again, his examples, and ask, what would he like us to do when we remember of him? That we reach out to others. So right now we can do something that in the physical eyes may seem nothing, but in the spirit realm can be a great deal. And also propose to us and the ones who are in the internet, a friend of ours in Florida named Livia Tevrizani in Orlando, Florida. She proposed that Spiritist centers in the U.S. get together tomorrow, wherever you are, at home, tomorrow at 9 p.m., everybody, precisely at 9, stop everything and pray for Haiti. This is 9 p.m. Eastern Time for the ones who are in Europe. You need to adjust your clocks. And for the ones who are in the West Coast and other places in Brazil or elsewhere. But this is how we think Chico Xavier would like us to think of his legacy, by doing more to others than just to ourselves. And we are going now open for a few minutes of questions and then engage into a visualization to assist and be of help to those who died in Haiti or are still under the debris. We don't know. It's possible. And the ones who are still there in incarnate form, the volunteers who are trying to help out, and because we are all interconnected after all. So, do we have any questions or comments you want to raise before we step into that? Leo, Celia are also here to answer. Anybody has any question or comment? It's important. You want to ask Yasko something. I know she smiles. It means that probably she wants to ask. It helps others if you do, or...
Well, I think I'm still, I'll say, because of the movie yesterday that I saw, you showed the preparation for the death and for the discarnation. And in many movies, I don't know how much this could be an example for certain cases, and then you will tell me what case should be. In case that a sudden death like that, a murder, was not her fault. It's not that it's a suicide. It's not as bad as a suicide. It was not her fault, but it was a sudden death. And she did not have time to even be aware that she had died. So it's a true suffering. So I heard that the good spirits also put you in some state of coma, exactly to have time to dissociate to the very strong memories of their past life and the death, the way she died. So is there a case, depends on our way, how we lived, in what we believed, what was our behavior, a true case that we don't accept the help and don't accept even to go to this coma for a certain time. So we keep suffering even during the discarnation. Is there a case, depends on our way to be or how we were?
Yes. Good question. No. Actually, Yasko, majority of the cases that André Luiz shows to us about the transition from this life into the next one is about cases in which resistances happened. And one part of your question was about the movie Lovely Bones and the teenager who died, and it was a sudden death. And it reminds us of Allan Kardec's question, why sometimes children and teenagers die and they're so young, and why, and sometimes there is no awareness or preparation, etc. Because when you're sick, kind of you get prepared for it, but in their case they don't. And the answer of the spirits was, usually when children and teenagers, they die and they are quite young, it's because they are actually making it up for lives in which they cut their lives short. So, of course, in the movie they don't talk about sequence of lives, but we could extrapolate that probably this would be the case. Let's say I was supposed to live 64 years, and when I am 50, I just quit on life. Then, in another life, this is just fictitious, okay? The math of God is beyond our understanding now, but just fictitiously, according to the Spiritist teachings, they say, let's say the 14 years she was supposed to live are left for another life, and she's going to live 14 years. And died somewhat dramatically, also to learn and appreciate life, they say. Because you're frustrated. You get there, it's like, oh my God. And she shows it in the movie. I didn't have time for the things that my sister did, my younger sister did, and others. So this is the feeling that the spirits are telling us that we're supposed to learn, to appreciate. So next time, we'll think 300 times before we do, because we'll have that feeling of you strive to live more. You want to live more because you know how much you just took it for granted in previous lives. Now, in Andrea Lewis' case, about these transitions and the resistances, especially in the case of coma, for example, or in the case of people who don't want to die. In this book, they talk about another case that correlates to such experience. And in other ones of his books, for example, it's not a book that is in English yet, but it's Andrea Lewis' books, Action and Reaction. They also talk about cases in which the spirits would have resistances and hold grudges. That's how obsessions happen as well. Holding grudge. And this is why this movie, again, is beautiful, because it reinforces that either we surrender to life or we're going to create bigger mess in the afterlife. And watch it. And it really correlates with the Spiritist teachings in great fashion. And the beauty of the Hollywood movie is that it gives us the visual so we never forget. And the correlation between life and death and the preparation we shall do. Okay? All right? So shall we do the visualization before we wrap it up? Is that okay? So let us truly think about all of our brothers and sisters who are there. Let us join our hearts, both incarnates and discarnates here present in the center, and our friends in the internet. Let us close our physical eyes and visualize beings of light who have love and compassion in their hearts. Let us visualize them leading our path into this rescue work. We visualize ourselves symbolically dressed on white robes, on our hands, each one of us carry a basket of spiritual aid with remedies nourishment. For the soul, for the spiritual and physical bodies. And we picture ourselves getting into a very enlightening means of transportation. It can be a bus or a plane. All of us there. And we hear the hymns of spiritual glory, enlightening songs sung by a choir in the spiritual realm who is accompanying all of us, and the enlightening guides. We feel inspired, and we see the best of us blossoming. And we get to Haiti. When we land on it, we visualize lots of enlightening spirits welcoming us to join forces with them. And we follow their instructions. And we help distributing the spiritual aid that we carried with us. Let us spend a minute of our external silence to feel this spiritual rescue work operating right now in both realms in Haiti. Yes, it could be us there. And let us dedicate ourselves, especially now, to the ones who possibly are still living under the debris, without food, water, or any help. Let us reach out to them, giving them a loving embrace, as if they were our own children. Putting their heads close to our chest and telling them, you are loved. God loves you. And this shall pass. And they feel hopeful that either in the physical realm or the spiritual realm, they shall find relief. And let us picture a blanket of loving light and healing over the whole country, picturing animals, plants, and human beings enveloped in this warm and kind blanket. And we say, dear Lord, in these circumstances we realize how much we still need to grow. Because still, we can't understand the reasons. But we know that you love us and that the tragedy in our eyes is the transformation in yours. So may we grow past our childish view of life. May we grow mature, learning that you never abandon us. And thank you for giving us opportunities for solidarity and fraternity. May we multiply the many resources you have given us in this life, from physical life to all other resources, including our spiritual resources. Thank you for bringing us among friends, for sustaining and maintaining the light of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, and all the works of good on planet Earth. May the United States of America also feel your blessings, protecting its president, his family, his team, inspiring them all to reach out to all nations all the more. In your guidance, protection, and permission, we close tonight's service, and so be it.